If I told you that you could master a language in just 6 months? You might not believe it, but it's entirely possible, backed by authoritative linguistic research. In this video, we'll share our valuable experiences, and if you stick around until the end, you'll surely benefit greatly. Without further ado, let's get started. Foreign Service Institute, FSI, based on 70 years of teaching experience, categorizes languages by difficulty and estimates the time required to reach S3/R3, professional working proficiency. For languages closely related to English, such as Spanish, French, Italian, etc., FSI estimates it takes 24 to 30 weeks, about 600 to 750 hours. This means that with scientific study methods and intensive course schedules, mastering a new language in 6 months is entirely feasible. FSI's S3/R3 level corresponds to approximately B2/C1 on the SFR scale, which covers the language requirements for most study abroad, immigration visas, and work environments. Therefore, this level is termed General Professional Proficiency by FSI, indicating a solid command of the language. Now that we know rapid language acquisition is possible, how do we create a specific study plan? Regardless of the language, the process generally follows these 3 steps. Master the writing system and pronunciation, about 2 weeks. Grasp the grammar system and basic vocabulary, about 1 to 2 months. Immersive learning. Accumulation and enhancement, 3 months or more. Mastering the writing system and pronunciation. If you're learning a Romance or Germanic language, this step can be largely skipped since they use the Latin alphabet, similar to English. However, for other language families, such as Russian or Greek, you may need some time to familiarize yourself with their alphabets. For example, here is the Russian alphabet for a direct visual reference. For Japanese and Korean, you'll need to get acquainted with kana and hangul, respectively. Some claim to master all kana in as little as 3 hours, while others may take 1 to 2 months. Grasping the grammar system and basic vocabulary, about 1 to 2 months. The grammar system is essentially a logical framework. Once you grasp the key points, your language learning journey will become much smoother. Conversely, if you struggle with the grammar system, it will significantly increase your learning costs and time. Although grammar shouldn't take up most of your study time, it is essential to master it. Most languages' grammar systems can be divided into 3 categories: noun declension, verb conjugation, and syntax. Noun declension. Usually, in addition to nouns and verbs, other word classes such as articles and adjectives also follow similar inflection patterns to nouns or verbs. In European languages, these are all classified as nominal inflections, having attributes of gender, number, and case. In Japanese and Korean, however, adjectives and verbs follow similar inflection rules and are collectively categorized as yogen, predicates. In languages like Chinese, Japanese, and Korean, nouns have only one form and do not change. However, in European languages, nouns have gender, number, and case attributes. You can think of it as the XYZ axis of a noun. However, many European languages have simplified or dropped these distinctions. For example, English nouns only have number, singular and plural forms, like student and students. Romance languages, French, Spanish, Portuguese, Italian, generally retain gender and number attributes. For instance, in French, the word for student can have up to 4 forms depending on gender and number. German, Russian, and classical languages like Greek and Latin have more complex systems with gender, number, and case attributes. For example, a German noun can theoretically have up to 24 forms. This might seem intimidating at first glance, but don't worry. In practical use, except for a few nouns that can have multiple genders, German nouns generally have only one gender, either masculine, feminine, or neuter. Therefore, usually, German nouns have 8 forms, 2 numbers and 4 cases. Moreover, some of these forms are identical. Let's take the word student as an example, which is a masculine noun. Compared to nouns, the German articles and adjectives, which can have 3 genders, 2 numbers, and 4 cases at the same time, are even more daunting, but we won't go into that here. After the above overview, I believe everyone now has a basic understanding of the XYZ axis of gender, number, and case for nominal inflection in European languages. Next, we can move on to verb conjugation. Verb conjugation. Whether in European languages or Japanese and Korean, verb conjugation rules also follow similar XYZ axis principles. In European languages, the 3 axes are personal conjugation, tense, and mood. First, let's focus on personal conjugation. Personal conjugation involves changing the verb form according to different persons. In English, the only personal conjugation that is retained is in the present indicative mood, which is divided into two forms. The third person singular adds ins to the verb's base form, while other persons just use the base form. For example, apart from English, other European languages generally retain a six-person conjugation system. Due to time constraints, we won't go into detail here. Let's take a quick look at the present indicative conjugation of the same sentence in French to get an intuitive understanding. In English, apart from the present indicative mood, other tenses and moods have lost their conjugation distinctions, leaving only one form. For example, in the past tense, regardless of the person, verbs typically end in ed. Therefore, learning English is relatively easier compared to other languages. Now let's discuss tenses, which are relatively straightforward to understand. Tenses involve changing verbs according to different time references. However, there's a crucial point to note. We need to distinguish between basic tenses and compound tenses. Basic tense changes involve a set of independent rules, while compound tenses are essentially a matter of combining elements. In English, the basic tenses are only the past and present, or non-past. We'll release more detailed English grammar series videos in the future, so we won't delve into the details here. Other European languages generally retain three basic tenses: past, present, and future. Building upon these basic tenses, you can create compound tenses by combining them with be, have, or other auxiliary verbs, including will. There are numerous ways to combine these elements, and we'll explain each of them in detail in future videos. Japanese and Korean, like English, have only present and past tenses as basic tenses. Finally, let's discuss mood. The rules for conjugation and mood changes in English have been greatly simplified. As mentioned earlier, only the present indicative mood retains some traces of conjugation, while different moods often utilize tense changes as substitutes. For example, the subjunctive mood can directly employ the past tense form. In contrast, learning other European languages is not so straightforward. Conjugation, tense, and mood each operate on their own axis. It's not an exaggeration to say that a single verb can have hundreds of forms, as shown in the conjugation table for the French verb to speak. Alright, next let's talk about Japanese and Korean. They belong to a different system and do not have personal conjugation for verbs, but they do distinguish between honorific and non-honorific forms. Therefore, the three main axes are honorifics, tense, and mood. Of course, the honorific system in Japanese and Korean is very complex, but we won't go into detail here. Just know that honorifics are one of the axes for verb conjugation in these languages. Syntax. How should we master sentence structure? Many of you might have encountered this question. However, compared to verb conjugation in European languages, sentence structure is relatively simple. You don't need to memorize a lot of inflections. You can solve it with simple logical methods. First, to understand the sentence structure of a language, the first step is to see if it has a case system, and if so, what kind of case system it is. English does not have a case system and is a highly analytic language. In other words, English sentence structure relies mainly on strict word order and the use of prepositions. The order of words in a sentence cannot be changed arbitrarily, or the meaning might be reversed or confused. Romance languages, similar to English, do not have a case system either and mainly use strict word order and prepositions to form specific sentences. Japanese and Korean, which are slightly more complex, do have a case system, but it is relatively simple. You just need to add case particles to the end of nouns. Because of the case system, the word order is relatively freer than in English. As long as the predicate, which you can understand as the verb, is placed at the end, the preceding parts can be moved around grammatically correctly, although there are more commonly used word orders based on conventions. If you've studied Japanese, you might notice that case particles in Japanese, except for nominative and accusative particles, correspond to English prepositions. Yes, you've grasped the core idea. In fact, case systems and prepositions are interrelated concepts. Let's look at more complex case systems. Languages like German, Russian, Classical Latin, and Ancient Greek have case systems completed through inflectional endings. Using Latin as an example, its case system is quite complete, with a word potentially having 6 cases, sometimes 7, nominative, accusative, dative, genitive, ablative, and vocative. Each case has specific inflectional endings. Although memorizing declensions can be very painful, the benefit is that word order becomes very flexible. For example, swapping the positions of the subject and object doesn't affect the sentence's meaning because the endings clearly indicate the role of each word in the sentence. However, even though flexible word order is nice, if given a choice, many would prefer a strict word order over memorizing complex declensions. Let's see how English simplifies this. For example, in Latin, the sentence is. In English, it corresponds to. First, English has a strict word order, placing the object the bread after the verb, so we know the action of give is directed towards the bread. English also uses the preposition to express the indirect object the woman, replacing the dative case. The loss of other cases is handled similarly. So now you understand why prepositions and case systems are interrelated, and why some case particles in Japanese and Korean correspond to English prepositions. In other words, the core components of subject, verb, and object are defined by strict word order in English, while Japanese and Korean use nominative and accusative particles, so these words have no direct equivalence in English. Other case particles in Japanese and Korean can be directly mapped to English prepositions. Immersive learning. Accumulation and enhancement, 3 months or more. After mastering the grammar system, you enter the stage of accumulation and enhancement. Here are some effective learning methods. Immersive learning. Fully immerse yourself in the target language environment through interactions with native speakers, watching and listening to content in the target language, or even living in a country where the language is spoken. While that's easy to say, everyone knows that a native language environment is the best for learning a language, but not everyone has that opportunity. So what can we do? Of course, we can have some compensatory measures, such as watching foreign movies and TV shows. Choose movies or TV shows you like. For example, if you're learning English, you can watch British or American shows with only English subtitles or no subtitles at all. This not only improves your listening skills but also helps you understand cultural contexts and everyday expressions. Listening to music and podcasts. Choose some foreign language songs you like, sing along with the lyrics, and feel the rhythm of the language. Podcasts are also a great option, as many are specifically designed for language learners with rich and interesting content. Communicating with native speakers. Although it's difficult to make foreign friends offline, we can do so online. Nowadays, various media platforms like YouTube, Twitter, now renamed X, Instagram, Facebook, etc., have many interest communities. You can use these platforms to communicate with native speakers as much as possible and join online chats. This can help you naturally master the language use and improve your output skills. High-intensity language learning. Engage in several hours of high-intensity study daily, covering listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Through intensive practice and systematic courses, you can quickly improve your language skills. The FSI recommends about 25 hours per week, averaging around 3.5 hours per day. If you're working and can't find 3 to 4 hours daily, you need to prioritize. I suggest focusing on listening. For example, if you're learning Spanish, you can listen to Spanish before bed. Our channel also regularly updates listening practice videos in different languages, which you can find in the video description and pinned comments. Trust me, the importance of listening accumulation is much greater than you might think. We will also release a dedicated video on listening training in the future. Additionally, if you want to use fragmented time to learn a foreign language, I also suggest prioritizing listening. For example, if you commute daily, you can listen to English podcasts on the way. While waiting in line or for someone, you can also use the time to listen to the language you want to learn. Developing a study plan and regularly assessing progress. Creating a reasonable study plan can help you systematically learn the language. The FSI also recommends regularly assessing your progress. First, you can set daily and weekly study times based on your schedule. Ensure these times are fixed to form a habit. Then, conduct a self-assessment every month to check your progress and shortcomings, and adjust your study plan accordingly. This way, you can ensure continuous progress and timely address any issues. Maintaining a positive mindset. Keeping motivation and interest high is crucial in the process of learning a foreign language to avoid giving up due to frustration. Setting small, achievable goals can help maintain a sense of accomplishment and long-term motivation. Driven by interest and enjoying the process will help you persist in the long run. If you approach learning with a mindset of endurance, it won't be very effective. Even if you consciously convince yourself, your subconscious will still resist, significantly reducing efficiency. Of course, you should tailor your plan to your situation. There's no one-size-fits-all method. The most important thing is whether it suits you. This video provides an overarching view of language learning. Next, we will offer series courses for different languages. You can find the links in the video description or pinned comments. Our current plan includes English, French, Spanish, German, Japanese, Korean, Portuguese, and Italian. Since we can't maintain a weekly update for each series, there will be a sequence. If your language of interest hasn't been updated yet, don't worry. It will be released gradually. We will also continue the Learning 9 Languages Simultaneously series, comparing the same knowledge points across these languages. We welcome you to follow our channel. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment, and we'll try to respond. You're also welcome to share your insights and experiences in the learning process. Finally, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. See you in the next episode.